I think most people get sold that dream, and that's why they join the industry. And one thing I've noticed is at some point, um, sometimes people forget that. They get really sold on, oh, I'm with WFG, I'm with PHP, and they're really all about the logo. And it's like, well, did you get recruited to build your own agency, or did you get recruited to build someone else's? And so I think one of the things I try to do, first of all, is just try to get people back in the right frame of mind. Let's talk about not this logo or that logo, or they're providing your contracts, or this company's providing your contracts, but let's talk about your business, right? Let's talk about what you need to do to push you forward for your business. Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I have a guest here today. Super excited to have on board here, Matt Seibert. Him and I have partnered. We just have very similar journeys in our journey in the insurance industry. And so what we want to do is talk about that today and talk about the things that we've learned in our journeys, and kind of going through different steps of the journey, right? Different stages. And each stage, there's bad things that happen and there's good things, but the main thing is that we got things that we learned and we got to take away from each stage. And so what we want to do today is kind of share our experiences. So if you're a new agent and you can learn, you don't have to go through the same mistakes we made, right? You can understand better where you're at or where you're going. So without further introduction, let me introduce Matt. How you doing, Matt?
Good, man. Glad to be here, Michael.
Awesome. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your story, your journey, where you started, and kind of how you got to where you're at, and things that you want agents to learn from.
Well, I think what you said early in the video is spot on. Like if you're a new agent or if you're somebody looking to get into this industry, I think this video will save you a lot of time from wasting time. I think this industry, unfortunately, has a lot of smoke and mirrors. A lot of companies are going to say one thing but do another, and it's really unfortunate because you would think that this is the last industry where there's a lot of stuff, games played. But it's funny when I first met Michael, and we started talking, and before we started partnering, we figured out we had almost the exact same journey, which I was shocked because I haven't really met anybody that had the exact same journey, even kind of length of time too, which is ironic. But I myself, I got into the industry about 10 years ago. I first started in a MLM model, similar to like WFG model, along with like, PHP, GFI, there's FEG, Primerica. I think one of the big characteristics, if you have the pay to join, that's an MLM. So I started in that model, was in there for about 8 years, worked my way up. I got to like, being the CEO's right-hand man. And then when I left that company due to COVID, all the timing, everything was perfect. I ended up in a whole different side of the insurance industry, which I didn't understand at the time, but there's kind of two sides to it. So one side is considered like advanced market. So your main focus is to help people financially. You're going to do a lot of annuities. Some people do IULs, whole life, but it's really the focus of guiding people financially, right? And then I didn't know, but there's a whole other side of the insurance industry. And that's usually they call it like simplified issue companies, where they primarily focus on like final expense, and they also add like mortgage protection and stuff like that. So when I left that WFG model, I went into the simplified issue model. And a lot of those companies, Family First Life, Symmetry, Equus, there's a lot of them. They're very similar, but those are completely different because those are really focused on buying leads. At the time before COVID, you're actually going to homes. And then after COVID, the culture really changed from buying leads to just flipping insurance over the phone. And
Yeah.
I realized that that model wasn't for me either. And that's the same thing with Michael. And then it was just ironic. Michael and I, we ended up in the same other company, Life 180, where it's completely different, but it's like, that's how I imagined this industry should have been when I first got in. So, I had to make a lot of mistakes, Michael. I'm sure you'll share some of the same mistakes that you've made, but now reflecting back, I think it, motivates both of us to share our experience so people don't have to make the same mistake. Because there are, every company has, good people and bad apples, however you want to talk, describe it. But I think there's some attributes and some characteristics which I don't agree with. And it's not my opinion. I think most people, if you were to explain that attribute and explain to them what you're actually doing, most people would agree that's not right. And out of any industry, I mean, every company, every leader, most of these people in this industry, it's this virtue signaling and, oh yeah, we're all about helping families and doing people, which you'll hear in every single company. But yet when you look at their actions, it's kind of contrary to what they say. And I think that's really the first point. A lot of agents start noticing that. But with that, I mean, I guess,
Yeah.
Michael, if we're gonna share our journey, so like if a new agent or somebody looking to get into this industry, I guess the first thing is let's talk about the MLM model and what are some of the things that people could avoid or things that you realize or
Yeah.
we can start with that.
What I want to bring up too is when I got, this is what I talk to new agents about all the time. And I try to get them back in the right frame of mind as to why they got started. Right. And the reality is most people get started in this industry because they see an opportunity. And they see an opportunity to build something for themselves, right? To maybe set their family free, to get out of a job, to get back their time, right? There's a lot of great things about this industry, right? It's why I'm here. Um, and so I think most people get sold that dream, and that's why they join the industry. And one thing I've noticed is at some point, um, sometimes people forget that. They get really sold on, oh, I'm with WFG, I'm with PHP, and they're really all about the logo. And it's like, well, did you get recruited to build your own agency or did you get recruited to build someone else's? And so I think one of the things I try to do, first of all, is just try to get people back in the right frame of mind. Let's talk about not this logo or that logo, or they're providing your contracts, or this company's providing your contracts. But let's talk about your business, right? Let's talk about what you need to do to push you forward for your business. Let's forget about who's providing the contracts for a minute. What adjustments, what changes do you need to make, right? And so, yeah, let's start with the MLM model, Matt. One thing about most of the MLM models is and definitely all MLM models, there are a couple, maybe a little bit higher compensation, but when you compare it to an independent route, they are lower compensation, and some of them are super low. Like, I don't know about you, Matt, but I started at 24%. What did you start at?
Yeah, like
Say
20%.
20%. Yeah.
Something
And
like that.
it's
You might have got a raise.
it's laughable because if you go to the carrier, they don't even offer that low of a
Yeah.
contract. Right.
Well, let's talk
And
about that because, and that's how the business is structured. Like you were saying, is a lot of these MLM models, they're the ones that's paying you. And that's
yeah.
why they can give you a comp that doesn't really exist with the carriers, right? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually, so the first time I realized that, Matt, I had a guy from an independent model reach out to me. He goes, "Hey, Michael, do you think it's weird, like with your code at your current company, that you can go to Nationwide and you can go to Pacific Life and you can go to this company and it's all the same code?" And I thought for a second, I was like, "Huh, that's actually kind of interesting, right?" He goes, "Do you think all those companies just have the exact same code number waiting around for you?" And I was like, no, of course not. He goes, that's your employee code at so-and-so company, right? And so that's when I started to realize that I was actually just working for the company. And it's known as an LOA model, right? And so the company pays you. Everything goes through the company. They own your book. You can, supposedly vest in that company, but then there's actually a big movement, Matt. Like a bunch of people left one of the companies because they realized they didn't own the business.
Uh,
Talk about that, Matt, if you want to share some.
well, I mean, we're talking about Eric Olson leaving WFG to start
Yeah.
GFI. And if you think the number one producer of a company didn't know how it was structured and the rules of the game, come on. I mean, let's be honest here. There's really nothing else to say to that. It's just a big. He just wanted to start his own, and that's just the reality.
Right, right. But they're using the fact that they couldn't transfer their business. The legacy program's gone, right? That was supposedly there. That's what they're using as, oh, they ripped us off, right? They lied to us. So I think that's what I'm getting at is when you're in that type of model, especially if you don't have a contract, and most of them are going to have you sign a contract, but there's still things that can be changed.
That I mean, that's the big thing, right? So these MLM models like WFG, PHP, they are anti-job, anti-W2, get out of the corporate world. You're a loser if you have a job, and you need to work for yourself. You need to be an entrepreneur. And the big part of entrepreneurship, the big benefit is freedom, right? Freedom of your life. But yet, when they recruit you, it's actually lack of freedom because although they say they're non-captive, you're a captive to WFG, you're captive to PHP, you're captive to GFI. Because if you do anything outside of their company and the carriers, they will drop you or you'll get terminated. So it's funny how, and I always said this, is they take you out of one cage and tell you how bad it is to be in a cage just to put you in another cage. And it's just really, unfortunate. A lot of agents don't understand this. And this is why if you're new, if you're thinking about getting into the industry, look, you can make your own decisions. I'm not here to tell you which way to go and trying to persuade you or anything, but you should start asking the right questions. And if you don't know the right questions to ask, you need to reach out, watch this video or reach out to us, because before you make a commitment, you have to know the right questions to ask so you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm thankful for my initial experience. If I never had it, I wouldn't be in the industry today.
Yeah.
Right. And so, kind of coming from that standpoint, Matt, tell me about some of the things that you did learn in that phase of your journey, but then also like why you decided, hey, you know what, it's time to go to the next phase. It's time to leave.
Yeah, man. It's funny because a lot of people, they'll mention to me, Matt, you're so anti MLM in the insurance industry and all that, right? You're so anti, and you're so passionate about how crooked it is and all that. But why did you spend so much time there? Um, and that's a valid thing. And one of the things you don't understand, and most people don't understand, is like you probably understand, but those companies are really good at having you brainwashed in a sense you don't understand reality. And what they do is they really build on relationships. So it's almost like you'd feel guilty for leaving. There's a lot of mechanisms that they put in place where the last thing you're thinking about is leaving that type of company. There's more, it's almost like they make you feel like there's more to lose than to leave than to stay.
Right.
So, but I am totally grateful. And, I think with any company, there are some special people. And regardless of the company, my mentor, he taught me just almost everything that I learned, to be honest. I mean, he was next level, but it was more the person he was, and it had nothing to do with the company. But with him, I mean, he taught me everything as far as skills with building relationships, talking with people, working with agents, building agencies. And so I have no regrets as far as going through that. But now referring back, um, I would tell agents not to do it. And so an agent would argue, well, Matt, well, you say all these good things that you got, and why wouldn't I go and do the same thing? But what I got was because of him, not because of the company. Had nothing to do with the
Right.
company. He was a special individual, unique,
Okay.
very unique. His upline, his main guy was Rich Thawley, and Rich Thawley's upline was A.L. Williams. So my mentor had specific knowledge and stuff that at a whole nother level that I have not seen with any WFG PHP agent, not even close. So I think I was fortunate for me to actually met him, but I don't think I would have had the same outcome if I would have been under anybody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it kind of goes back to it's who you know, right? It's not the company that you're with, but who are you partnered with, right? And I think people sometimes they get so caught up like trying to compare companies. It's like no, just find yourself a mentor. Like the mentor should be your primary target, not what company should I join. So,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, I kind of left Matt. I kind of got lucky too. So, I probably didn't have a mentor quite, in the know as yours, but I did get lucky in the fact that, my mentor he was like the annuity guy. And so he could teach annuities. In fact, whenever, we were part of Ed Milet's team, and whenever we had like a hierarchy training, he was the guy that they chose out of everybody of over 1,000 agents to train the annuities for everybody. So I kind of got lucky. I got that very personal one-on-one coaching and how to really talk to people and um, explain the annuities and educate people. But so yeah, I know most people don't get that kind of mentorship like I got or like you got. And so most people, from what I've seen is they just kind of feed the appointments and give them away. Right. And the mentors don't
Yeah.
even want, in a lot of cases, the mentors don't want you to learn because they want you to keep bringing them the people versus you becoming independent. And so I definitely saw that too. Um, but for me, Matt, one of the biggest reasons I left is, like I said, I come from the mindset of what do I need to do to push my business forward? And so one of the things I knew was I didn't feel good about bringing people in at 24%.
Yeah.
Right. I said, you know what? If I really want to grow my business, thinking like a business person, I need my people to make more money. Right. Because I just asked myself like common sense questions. If my people make more money, can they invest more in their business? If they invest more, can they grow it faster? If they make more money, can they leave their job? Because when I was at my MLM company, dude, none of my team was close to leaving their jobs. And I was like, how do I help them leave their job so they can be here full time, be all in, and grow and expand the business at a faster rate? Right. So you have to think like a business person and start asking yourself, how can I accelerate my business? And so for me, part of that was the compensation. And that's what drove me to kind of the next stage, which was kind of still like an MLM model. And I just want to say this, Matt. I tell agents this. I say, look, every company is an MLM. If someone tells you it's not an MLM and they're lying because they wouldn't be recruiting you if it wasn't, right?
I
But
mean,
what
in
we're
that
kind of
sense,
talking
yeah.
but what we're kind of talking about is more of a like a culture, right? And it's like a low compensation. We pay you, everything goes through us, we control everything. And so I went from that to more of an open, more independent type model, simplified issue. And honestly, Matt, this is kind of where my business took off because now my people were getting paid much better. But and I know you had the same journey, so um, there were still some issues, right, Matt? Like, did you see your
Yeah.
business take off as well?
Yeah. I mean, um, yeah, I didn't even explain why I left, but that what you said was spot on is for me, like I think you and I shared the common thing. It's like I'm not happy if my team's not doing well. You know what I mean? Like if I'm just the only one making money, it's not enjoyable for me. That doesn't matter.
Right.
And that was one of the things I saw too is um I I really worked on myself to develop the skills to get good in that model, right?
Yeah.
To make six figures in that model with no leads, that's pretty you're good. Like you have some skills. But very few people make six figures in that model because it takes really working on yourself.
Yeah.
And that was really the hard part. So not only, we're building a business in the MLM model where it's like the price of admission for somebody to succeed was not only high, not to say that they couldn't do it, but they really do it. And it was just hard, it was hard for me to just see agents failing and failing. It was just like, man, it's so hard for them. And then two, the retention was horrid. I mean, the minute I would recruit somebody, I would like, I really love this person. Like I really love what they stand for. But I couldn't get attached because I knew there's a 90% chance they're going to quit in a week because once we create their list and go through their friends and family, they feel uncomfortable and they're going to quit the job, quit the business because they thought they're getting into a job. And it's just like this cycle of like recruiting and losing people. And I just didn't see how that was sustainable. And so, like you, when I got into the simplified issue side, I'm not gonna lie, it was a breath of fresh air because we had leads and even my team, they never experience actually, oh, we got somebody to talk to and unlimited, right? So that was a whole different change. But then you get into like, well, if you want really good conversations, now you got to pay for them. So this is where the rub is, right? So this is what I was told. In the MLM model, like WFG, you have to meet people and create interest to make money. In the simplified issue, you don't have to meet people and create interest. We just buy interest here. So that was their tagline. We just buy interest. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. We buy interest. Yet I would buy leads and they were not interested. So tell me that. So how do we buy interest when the leads that you are recommending, they're not interested? That doesn't even make sense. And so there's so many problems with the simplified issue. And if anybody ever says leads are leads, I mean, you're garbage. Like any leader that says leads are leads, one thing I realized about leaders who say that, leaders who tell their team leads are leaders that don't know how to get in the trenches and actually help people hands-on. Because they don't know how, it's just more comfortable for them to arm's length and just say, leads are leads. It's your problem, not mine. Something's wrong with you, not with me or the company, right? What I realized, it's a lack of leadership. Like they just don't know how to help people get over certain things. So the easiest thing to say is leads are leads. So now, can we say leads are leads? Or if we were to define what a lead is, okay, I guess we could say leads are leads. But that's not the same thing when you're a company advertising how your own leads are wonderful and you can make it by just buy our leads, right? Because
Yeah.
that was really the problem I had. So I left that MLM model, help my team to make more money. We saw some immediate success because we got a little boost. But then you know what I saw my team drown in debt because they were buying leads and not making the money back. So I
Right.
mean that it was just like so it's not that they couldn't. This was my thing. It's not that they couldn't succeed in that, because I know somebody in here that has experience is probably watching this, like, oh, you probably just sucked at it. You're brand new, whatever, right? Ignorant leadership. It's not that. It's this company, like many others, they didn't set proper expectations because their main priority was for you to make sales so they can make money and get promoted, not for you to succeed. That was my
Yep.
problem.
Yep.
So I took a year to learn simplified issue and how to work leads and all that, right? After I realized how it actually works, how to succeed, I thought to myself, I never would have trained people like this. You're totally leading people off a cliff. And I thought, who the hell would train people like this? What kind of leadership is this company made out of? I just couldn't even believe it. And I
Matt.
thought, it just blew my mind. I'm thinking, like, what's wrong with these people?
Right. Yeah. Dude, Matt, it got to a point for me where I stopped. I tried to hide my team from any of the training resources because I didn't want them to watch it. It was like, this is
Yeah,
not
for sure.
good training, right? And so,
Yeah.
but I want to hit on something real quick, Matt, because you talked about the MLM model. You talked about how long it took to like get success there or find success, build yourself up. And, let me ask you, were you ever told you just got to make it to the 10-year room? If you look at people that have been here 10 years, they're all successful. And so I got told the same thing, right? Oh, just wait, you just got to make it 10 years and you'll be successful. And I thought, man, that doesn't make sense to me. Like if I'm a business owner and I understand, because some people, they want to compare like compensation plans, they want to look at numbers and it's like, no, this is a people business, right? It's not on a spreadsheet. It's kind of like in sports, when a team puts together like a championship team on paper, but it's like, no, you still got to go play the games and see if the team meshes together, right? And if they can win. And kind of the same thing, you're dealing with people's personalities and you're dealing with things. So back to that leadership portion of the business and understanding like a business owner, I understood this like, dude, there's nobody. I mean, there's a few, But most people are not going to give it a 10-year shot to see if they can be successful, right? They're going to give it about 6 months to 2 years. And so as a leader, I can't be selling a 10-year picture. I have to take that 10 years and say, hey, we got to cut this 10 years down to 6 months, right? We need to show them they can win right away. We need to get them out of the jobs in a much shorter time frame. Not because it's not worth it after 10 years, but because psychologically, these people are going to quit or these people are going to start to look for other things. And so, yeah, the retention, right? Like retention is one of the biggest things for business owners, biggest cost. And so people don't think in terms like that. But it's true, right? Not only that, but you have to compete. If you're offering 24% and I'm offering, let's just say 70, 80%, I'm going to have a recruiting advantage compared to you, right? And so that was actually one of the reasons to that. Like my business took off after I went to the simplified issue company model. And so, but yeah, just like you, Matt, it was buy leads. I never really got into it. And I didn't know if you had this struggle, but my MLM company, we came from the same company, right? So it was a lot of advanced markets, right? Underwritten products. So I was used to like real prices, like preferred prices, right? And now you're telling me to sell a simplified issue product, which is like table D. That means the client, if you don't know what table D in the ratings work, it's 25% per table. So table A, B, C, D that's 200% of the standard rating. So if you have a preferred client, they are paying 2 to 3 times the price that they should be paying. And when I saw the prices, I was like, dude, these are horrible. And then not only that, but we started, final expense was a big thing. And I got told, hey, you got to learn how to sell final expense. You got to show your team. So I did. I bought some final expense leads. And Matt, I don't know about you, but I really, really struggled with final expense because I had no problem helping a client that had a family that, had a 6-figure income. And it's like, hey, you need this $3 million to cover your family. No big, like, because I understood that $3 million was a lot. It was super valuable to that family. But then I would have a senior on a low budget fixed income. They can afford like $60 and they'd be like, well, I think the funeral I need about 8,000 and my family can cover it. And I would always be like, I think you're right. I would just lose the sale because I really struggled to sell an $8,000 policy, right? Because it's like, it was just tough for me, Matt. And I will say this, after a couple months, I did realize that there were people out there that haven't saved a dime. And I started to develop an appreciation for final expense for those type of people. But I did find myself in the wrong market because those are the same people that can't afford it 2 months later because of inflation. And you started dealing with chargebacks and roll-up debt. And I don't know how the debt hit you, Matt, but it hit me pretty good.
Man, there's so much to unpack right there. I mean, okay. So,
A lot.
and that's the thing, right? As a leader, if you're in this industry, you have a responsibility to teach your team, your agents, the road ahead. The turns you should make, the turns you shouldn't make, what to expect, right? And I don't know, I know a lot of leaders in the simplified issue business, and I really haven't heard any that are very clear on expectations as far as like chargebacks for like final expense. I could be wrong. If you're a leader in simplified issue and everything I say is incorrect, reach out to me. I would love to connect with you because I want to hear a different story. But the reality is you would think you would tell an agent, hey, look, the demographic of final expense, if you think about it, look, I'm not trying to demean people or put people down. But I think most people would agree that if you lived a full life and you're at the tail end and you finally realize you should get life insurance for your kids and your family, you probably didn't make a lot of smart decisions, especially if you don't have retirement and you're living off of Social Security. Not saying that's bad, not demeaning it. Yes, they need insurance. But when you're dealing with somebody that made, those kind of decisions all of their life, they're highly likely to continue making those poor decisions, right? And not to say I've met some people that have money. It was just timing thing, and I'm not talking about that. I mean, majority of final expense clients, it's a type of identity. It's a type of person, right? And you would think as a leader, you tell your agents, hey, like I just want to let you know the identity, the type of people you're selling to, and probability that 50% is probably going to charge back. You would think that that would be something that the agents would want to know, right? Um, but unfortunately, that's like not really talked about. And then the second thing is, you said something about the table D, right? Simplified issue, and I didn't know this when I first got in. Simplified issue, it's really meant to offer because you're selling it mostly to final expense, like people that are older. They might have health issues. They might not get approved right away, or they might not even get approved with full underwriting. So they created simplified issue where certain questions are eliminated and you don't have to do blood work, where somebody could get approved right there on the spot. That way you have full coverage, right? So I think that's needed. I think that that totally makes sense. Um, but what I had a problem with, and I didn't realize what was going on, is everybody was selling that to healthy people, like everybody. And I thought, why are we selling this expensive health life insurance that's meant for sick people? Why are we selling it to like healthy people? Like they're young, they're like in their 30s and 40s. Like, why are we selling it to them? And really what I figured out was this. It's because it pays right away. Like you can close an application and get paid the next day in your bank account. So why do you need to get paid right away? And I was thinking, okay, obviously, getting paid right away, it's better than later, right? I get that, right? But I didn't get into this industry to get paid right away. I already knew the industry is a little delayed as far as income goes. But now we're living in a world where we can get paid the next day. Well, where did this come from? Well, it's because most of these agents dropped $1,000 in leads and they have to make all their damn money back and pay their bills just to actually keep their business going. And so you have this system in the simplified issue space where agents have to buy leads, make that money back, plus pay their bills. It creates a situation where it's like a moral hazard for these agents to have conversations with people because their motive is to sell them and not actually help them. And so when I saw this amongst a lot of agents and company wide, and I thought, this is not right. I had a problem with it. And it's kind of like what you're talking about. It's like, why are we selling this table D stuff to everybody? It doesn't make sense. Do you have
Yeah.
that epiphany?
I mean, for me, Matt, honestly, I couldn't sell it. I didn't sell the simplified issue. I kept selling what I was used to selling, all underwritten stuff. And dude, it got to the point where not my direct upline, because she got it. But her upline, he pulled me aside, him and his brother, and they said, hey, you got to start selling these things. I was like, I ain't selling that. Like, I know how to run my business. You know, I'm building a team, and I did. I hit, VP levels and built a multi-million dollar agency within 18 months. So
Mhm.
from a growth standpoint, we had excellent growth, but it was hard because, back to like who you align yourself with, finding the mentor, but you also have to have alignment. I was trying to teach my team one thing, but
Yeah.
the company was teaching them something completely different. Right. And so you had some agents that listened to me and you had some agents that didn't listen to me. Um, and so you just had kind of things all over the place. Um, it didn't create for like a solid team, like unison.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was one of those things. I never sold it. I never sold a term simplified issue ever,
Wow. So
even though
you're
I was
better
there.
than I
Right.
am.
But yeah, I just looked at the prices. I'm like, how am I going to sell a $200 policy when I know the client can get this for $75? I can't do it.
Mhm.
Can't do it. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so I was a little bit different in that sense, Matt. But um, I did learn some things, right? Because I learned some things on the alignment. Um,
Mhm.
Obviously the compensation increase that I went there for in the first place, it worked, right? I was able to recruit better.
Yeah.
I helped people get out of their jobs.
Mhm.
I had some people make 25, 30,000 in production, not net. And that's another important thing because
We can
you
talk
got to
about that.
focus on the bottom line, not the top line. But
Yeah.
they sold 25, 30,000 by their second, third month, you know, and so we did have that push. I think having leads can be a good thing. However, when there was a conflict of interest in this case, because the company was selling their own leads, right? It wasn't, but even when you go out with lead vendors, right? The lead vendors, you don't know what you're getting.
Yeah.
So,
For sure.
um,
And I think, you know, I think leads are great if you need them, right?
Yeah.
It's a great place if you need them. If you can create leads organically, there's nothing better than that. Like not even close.
Absolutely.
But if you have to work leads, I think it's a conflict of interest, moral hazard. If you need to use leads while you also have to have like money to pay your bills, that should not happen. Like you're such in a bad predicament that, you know, most likely you're going to make a choice to pay your bills over anything else. And it's just funny, right? We went into the simplified issue and realized, oh yeah, we're helping people, right? Like some of these companies, family is in their first name. But it's like all this
Not to
virtue
mention names.
signaling, right? Virtue signaling, we're helping people, but you're actually not helping people, you're screwing people, right? And so it's
Yeah.
like this is what I learned. I don't know about you. Like, well, I know you did because we talk about it. In the MLM model, same thing. We're helping families making a difference. They're selling IULs, which is also putting people in predicaments. In a simplified issue, we're helping people. They get coverage fast. I'm like, oh, I could get behind that. But it's like expensive products that we're selling to healthy people when they could get same product, 50% less, right? So it's
Yeah.
like screwing people. And I'm just like, I walked away. I'm thinking like, this is crazy how nobody is standing up and saying anything. And the reason being is most of these people, these leaders who so-called they say they're freaking leaders, right? They are choosing commissions over actually helping people. Like I can't even sit back and have people even say how it's important about helping people and all this stuff when they're out there selling America. Like just certain things, I'm like, it's an oxymoron. You know what I mean? Like I can't even deal with this. So you know, it's just crazy. Like when we sit back and think like, what is really going on? Like seriously, in this industry, what is really going on? And so the reason why we're talking about all this, if you're new getting into this industry, you're thinking about getting into the industry, or if you're with a company and it's your first year, all I'm saying is you should really start asking questions and use logic. Ask, why do we sell this? Why do we not sell this? What do you know about this product that we're selling? Why do we sell this product? Right. And then I think, I mean, we talked about it before we started this recording, is if they give you a script and you're announcing yourself as something that you're not, that's a red flag. Like Benefit Center, the Mortgage Protection Center. Like I could go on for days. The just the
I got told that script and I could not, Matt, dude, I cannot, like, I ethically just could not announce myself as something I'm not.
yeah.
And so I could never use the scripts that they gave me. Oh, the benefit center or, um, you know, I'm what was another one I heard? I'm the like the quality assurance, you
Yeah,
know,
mortgage
following up on
protection. Oh,
the pass agent,
yeah, they're
right? Like
calling from the state. I've heard that.
state.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
wow. I mean, just the things, right? I mean, let's talk about that mortgage protection. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So I mean, mortgage protection is an interesting one. It's a concept, right?
Mhm.
And what I tell people is like, so you're selling term insurance,
Mhm.
but why would you just cover your mortgage? So I'm giving you a tip if you're working mortgage protection leads. One of the things I would ask a client is, like, let's just be honest, Matt. Like, this is the mortgage protection is really income protection. That's really what it is because we're making sure that should your income not be there due to illness or to death, we're gonna pay this mortgage off, right? We're gonna make sure that money's there. And so if it's income protection, here's my question to you, Matt. Do you want just enough of your income covered to cover the mortgage, or do you want your whole income covered for your family?
Yeah.
Right. And now you can expand the conversation. You can actually help them fully, not just sell them mortgage protection, but now you can talk about their debts, covering the income, covering the mortgage, covering their kids' education expenses, right?
Yeah. Human life
A lot of
value.
different areas you can go and really open the conversation. And that's the one problem I have with scripts, Matt, and it's one of the reasons I've never been scripted, is because when you're in a script, you're kind of locked into like one thing, and you can't really pivot or expand the conversation to different areas, right? Where
Well, that's
if I
that's the purpose, though. That's what the simplified issue don't want you to do. That's why they
right,
create the scripts the way they do, is they don't want you start babbling about retirement and all that. Just damn read the script and get an app in.
yeah,
And who has an app in for today? How many conversations? How many dials? So that's really the whole purpose. And you know what's funny is when I first got into the simplified issue company, um, I'm gonna admit I sold IULs, and everybody knew that I was the IUL guy coming into a simplified space where nobody knew what IULs were, right? And then
same
this is
same
what told me a lot
same
about
with
the
me,
culture,
Matt. Yeah,
right? So there's some things in agencies you do and you never do. And you never ever, it's like a rule like you never break, right? You never talk crap about someone else's upline to their agent. And one of a very, very well-known upline in this company told my agent, as if they wouldn't tell me, because my agents, are loyal, right? And my agent told me that this person said, don't listen to Matt. He sells IULs and we don't do those things there because they take forever to get paid, and focus on simplified issue because that's what we do. And I thought, okay, you've shown your cards, your credibility. I mean, the type of person you are is disgusting, right? But newsflash, guess what the number one thing they sell now is?
you
IUL.
will. Yeah,
Why? Because mortgage went down. They can't sell mortgage protection. And the one thing that they tell all the agents to sell final expense, they weren't going to sell it because they knew they weren't going to sell it, but they'll tell other agents to sell it, but they're not going to sell it themselves. And so all these guys, they went from mortgage protection to now they're flipping IULs over the phone. One call closes. And the things that they say, first of all, I was already laughing at some of the things they would say with mortgage protection, because it was like the Wild West. They would say things that are totally not even correct about even term insurance. How do you get that wrong, right? But now when I hear some of these agents talk about IULs, it is so sad, and it's really frightening, the things that come out of their mouths as far as how they explain what an IUL is. And I mean, we could that'd be a whole nother interview just talking about that.
yeah, no, it's crazy, Matt. Yeah, I see people selling IULs, and I mean it's straight screwing people because they don't know how it works, and these clients are going to end up with lapsed policies. It's pretty ugly what I've seen out there. But yeah, I was kind of the same boat, Matt. I was this IUL guy
Mhm.
coming from a company that sold a lot of IUL. Um, Funny that neither of us sell IUL anymore.
I know.
Now that
That's
it's
funny,
like,
right?
we were like the experts, and now we're so much of an expert that we don't even sell it because we know
Uh,
better. Um,
I thought I was an expert, and
right,
that
exactly.
wasn't.
And so, but yeah, it's yeah, you just see a lot of stuff going on that it's like, man, it's very it's not honest, right? It's not honest. And I know you mentioned like the numbers, and back to like if you want to make it in this business, um, especially if you're brand new, there's two things that you need that are going to set you free, right? And you need to develop your mindset and your skill
Mhm.
set. There is nothing else to this business. Your mindset and your skill set are everything. It doesn't matter what's in your bank. And I'll share a story, Matt. I was having a conversation before I left my employer 15 years. I had a six-figure income there before I got into the insurance industry. And I went out to lunch with this guy. Now, this guy worked for the same company I did, but he left a year prior. And he went out and he built an engineering firm. And so it was cool because here's another entrepreneur that left Southern California Gas Company. I was like, cool. So let's have a good conversation. And I was kind of sharing with him, what I was up to. I was sharing with him, hey, I'm doing this, I'm learning, I'm saving reserves. And it's funny when I got to the reserves, he kind of stopped me. He said, Michael, he goes, your reserves don't matter. He goes, all you're really doing is you're preparing for failure. Because whether you have 2 months of reserves or 2 years of reserves, if you don't perform, they're going to run out.
Yeah.
So the only thing that matters is that you can figure out how to perform, which is back to mindset and skill set. And the problem, Matt, I have with pushing the numbers the way they do at these companies is, and you're talking about companies like FFL, like Symmetry, Equus, some of these companies that are known as independent, kind of the MLM style models. But when you push the numbers, you get the agents focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Right. And they never learn how to be a good agent. They never learn how to be a leader. And so they end up washing out of the business because like this sucks. and so what I always try to do is get you back focused on what you need to accomplish. Because for me, Matt, I didn't have I was very introverted. I, I did not succeed my first year in this business, right? I had to learn even just how to talk to people. I had to learn a lot, but what I understood, I was given the right frame of mind that, hey, it's like you're building something, you're building yourself so that way you can be free. You can be somebody that can run an agency in the future. You're not that person today. And that's okay. As long as you're willing to develop, you're willing to change. And I remember my first mentor, he said, Michael, you can stay the same and nothing will change, or you can change and live the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
And so I made a decision to grow myself and change. But the problem is when you're pushing the numbers so much, the agents lose sight of that, right? And they lose focus they start focusing on the wrong things, right? And maybe you can share a little bit about that, Matt.
Well, I think that the problem is when companies, I mean, first of all, let's if we talk about why are these companies so focused on numbers, well, it's not about the agent, it's not about helping them, it's about the numbers, right? And when you have a structure like that, it's a sales organization. Look, you could be all about the numbers if you're selling cars. Be all about the numbers, you sell racquetballs. Be all about the numbers, sell up, furniture. But don't be about the numbers when you're selling insurance. Like it's like a problem, right? Because what happens is when you get people focused on the numbers, you're going to get a small percentage of that people where they got trauma in their life. Maybe they're bullied. Something happened in their life where the only way to build their self-esteem is to hit those numbers. And when you get someone like that, they will do anything, even unethical, to hit those numbers. And what's crazy, and I hate to say it, and I don't want to go there. They say sometimes, you have to like screw people to get yourself to the top to hit the high numbers. There's a saying out there, right? To really make it, you really got to screw people, right? And I don't really truly believe that. But it's really sad that a lot of people I know that have made it, that have done some extraordinary things, they did it by screwing people. It's sad that I have to see that pattern. It really sucks, right? And outside looking in, a lot of people they look up to these people like, oh, they're so great. And I'm thinking like, you have no idea what they did to get there. And that's the problem with focusing on numbers, is you're going to get people where the numbers have higher priority than anything else, and they forget, they, like you're saying, they kind of lose sight of what's actually, why do we get into this industry in the first place, right? We're not selling cars here. We're selling things that if you do it the wrong way, or if you sell them the wrong product, it can impact somebody's life dramatically. It could impact generations, right? Think about that. Your decision for a client could impact generations, and you're focused on hitting a number. And so my mentality is this: if you're watching this, or if you're a type of agent that you don't care, deep down, you know who I'm talking about. Like there's people that they don't care. They just want to hit numbers. I mean, they shouldn't be in this industry. That's just the
Yeah.
reality. They shouldn't be in this industry. I think numbers should be a byproduct of what you do, right? How much you make
Right.
should be a byproduct. You shouldn't lead with money. And what's funny is because a lot of agents, and this is the psychological part, a lot of agents don't make a lot of money in this industry because they're focused on the money. And you will only make as much money as your identity allows it to. Meaning if you grew up with parents that made, 60,000 a year, you don't understand this, but your identity is kind of fixed in a way where you probably won't make more than that. One or two, it can actually have the opposite effect. Maybe you're so poor where like you created so much pain where you have to make a lot of money, but you'll do it at all costs. So it's like when you're focused on the money, what I realize there's some real psychological things that'll screw you up. Here's another thing too. This is what I see a lot of agents do. I see a lot of agents in corporate America, they made 50 or $60,000. And then when you get into this industry, they stop when they hit 50, $60,000 because that's their comfort level. They can never pass
Yeah.
six figures. They never, like, they just can't because it's like, oh, the fear of not being able to pay the bills or insecurities gone. So they stop working. And then when they need money, they go back to work again. When they need money, they go back to work again, but they always stop around 50 or 60. So when you're
Yeah.
focused on money in this industry, it's psychologically you're screwing yourself subconsciously and you don't even know it. And if you want to know if you're screwing yourself, look at how much money you've made over the last 5 years. They'll tell you everything you need to know, right? Now,
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's some, there's could have been some things and that happened that contributed to that. But overall, if you had your head down and you've been working, no interruptions, and you can't, pass a certain amount of income, you're probably focused on the money and focusing on what skills, like taking inventory of your skills. What skills am I really good at? What skills do I need to work on? And then work ethic, your schedule, and having a plan. Those things, if those things are right, your habits, your systems in place, and everything, right? If those things are right, then your income will be whatever you want it to be. And so I think it's just kind of backwards of where
Yeah.
people are focused. The numbers are, look, track numbers, but the numbers are not targets. They're just to kind of show you, am I on track? Am I going in the right direction, right? But don't focus on the numbers.
Yeah, for sure. But give me a second, man. I'm gonna close these blinds. You're killing me.
The sun,
Yeah.
the issues with living by the beach,
Yeah, I
not a bad problem to have.
live a mile from the beach, so it's
That's
just a little quick walk.
one of
But
my favorite beaches, Huntington. Oh, I love that place, especially around Fourth of July. I might actually come up there on 4th of July. It's the whole place is freaking fun.
yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think for me that's the biggest issue that I see. Like you said, it's almost like it's a moral hazard, right? And you're screwing yourself because you're focused on the wrong things. You're not in the right frame of mind of growing yourself and becoming the person that you need to be. And I remember hearing this quote, and it was Jim Rohn, and he said, "Becoming a millionaire is a worthy goal, but not because of the money, but because of the person you become on the journey." Right. And you have to realize that if you want to get to the, succeed here in the industry, you have to grow yourself. Right.
Mhm.
And I will say this, the MLM model, they do a good job of pushing yourself to grow yourself, and that versus the simplified issue model we were in. There
It's
was
because it's rigged
absolutely,
against you. That's why you have to work so damn hard. That's why you have to grow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, one of the things too, I like I said, for me, I got into the industry because I had a vision, right? And I had this final picture in my head. This is how I want to run my business. These are the adjustments I need to make. And one of the things, Matt, I think you'd agree, we talked about this before, is each of the two models, they wanted you to conform to only do what they wanted you to do. Right. And when I left the simplified issue model, by the way, I left with 60 grand of debt rolled up to me, not my debt, other people's debt I had to pay. Right. And so, back to nobody told me about debt, roll of debt, because in the MLM model, we didn't make enough I honestly, I didn't make enough money. My team didn't make enough money to have roll up debt. Right. So I didn't know I was screwing myself when I was handing out these contracts and I was taking on this massive liability for such a little margin. Right. But that's how it's promoted. And I believe the top guy, he promoted it that way on purpose because his intention is to kind of enslave you and keep you in the field.
Yeah.
I truly believe that, especially after being in some of the leadership meetings and actually understanding the mindset of the guy. I was like, this is not somewhere I want to be. And so, like I said, I understood I needed better alignment. I took off. I did try to align with a couple of people, um, but same thing. They wanted me to conform to how they wanted things done. Uh, One of the guys, he got so mad. Him and his upline, they called me and they told me, "Hey, we're not going to work with your team if you don't do exactly what we tell you to do."
Wow.
And that was the day I was like, "Okay, this isn't working." This is like a month and a half in. I was like checking out a new company. And I said, "Okay, cool." I just hung up. I knew I was done. Um, and then they got mad to the point that they started making false accusations and trying to say this, just to recruit my people and keep them there out from under me. Uh, and then I decided I'm going to go independent. I did get an independent contract and got some wholesale contracts, and I'm going to burn my own agency. And around this time is when I actually got in contact with you, Matt, and we started sharing our story. And by the way, when it comes to Life 180, I had been following Chris's channel for probably about 6 months. I just like eating up the content. It was so good. And so when you told me like, hey, we're looking for people on this mission to actually educate agents and actually educate clients on what they're actually buying. And you told me this is how it works. We offer like you get a couple contracts, you can still do everything on your own and build your business. You don't have to conform to our business. For me, it was a no-brainer. I was like, I'm in. And so tell me a little bit about that, Matt.
Well, I think the big transition, and we both used to sell IULs, and now we don't sell IULs, and now we sell whole life. I mean that in itself, it's a big shift that
Yeah.
I think most IUL agents and most agents can't even digest. I don't think they could even fathom doing that because they still don't understand IUL. But it doesn't take complexity or anything like, when I saw Chris, his YouTube channel, and he was talking about IULs, and I thought, and that was a time when I was thinking about leaving this other company, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe I start my own agency and sell IULs. And I came across Chris, and I thought, this guy's really talking crap about IULs, and yeah, I didn't like him at first, and then unfortunately on YouTube, when you click a video, you get more of it, and he would just pop up, and some of the things really made sense. I'm not for any product, I'm for the client. And he was saying some things that for me, I was like, okay, I have to investigate this. I can't just act like I didn't hear what he said, because it kind of does make sense. And man, I swear the stars aligned. I swear, like some things in life, you just have to sit back and in awe. Because when I reached out to him, he lived in Phoenix, and I thought, oh my gosh, he lives in Phoenix. So he came out to my office, the simplified issue office, by the way. And then and we spent probably a couple hours, told me enough all I needed to know about IULs. And what I realized is he had an argument you can't win. And there's attributes of an IUL. It doesn't matter how you structure it, doesn't matter how good you know it. There are objective attributes of an IUL, of every single IUL ever created, that you cannot erase. And with that, most clients don't know about it. And if they knew about it, they wouldn't buy the IUL. Therefore, most IULs that are sold, it's because they were not disclosed. So that's called smoke and mirrors, right? Half truths. And so I decided I just didn't want to have a business where I had to, one, explain some things that most people didn't want, or make a decision not to explain those things, because that's basically what you're doing. That's the decision. I don't want a business like that. But then in the WFG model, I was I was trained to demonize whole life. So I never really even knew how whole life worked, to be honest. And then when I realized how whole life worked, I was just really shocked, because every attribute of whole life and how it works, that's actually what I could get behind. I actually am selling safety and security. I thought I was selling that with IULs, but when you really understand it, it's totally like the opposite, right? But I just couldn't believe how naive and ignorant I was. But whole life is so freaking amazing. Like all the stuff that I was taught, is not even, they're all myths. They're
Yeah.
all lies. And I'm thinking like, damn, I wish I would have, I wish I would have met Chris or learned, whole life a long time ago. And so here we are, when I got into Life 180. And I remember the first time I met you, you were posting something on Facebook regarding Chris's challenge.
That's
And I
right.
thought, oh my gosh, look at this guy. Okay. And I messaged you and you're like, what's up, man? And you were talking. I left it open, like, hey, man, because you said you watched Chris's video. And I said, hey, man, we're always growing. And then it's funny because you came up on an interview and I just recognized your face from the Facebook. I said, hey, you're that guy. And
Yeah.
here we are. So it's been quite a journey, man. Over a decade for us going through the same path. But one, I really love what we do because with whole life, you're actually selling what you're talking about. Like you're offering exactly what it is. There's no smoke and mirrors. It's not bait, switch and
Right.
bait. It's not this, but we're selling that. It's exactly what we're offering. And there's guarantees and certainty. And to me, like, I love that. And I'm never going to have a client call me 10 years from now saying, what you sold me is not, this is totally completely different. They know exactly what they're getting. In fact, I could even show them what's going to happen 10 years from now. There's no like, ambiguity, right? In that sense. So for me, I like that. And then on the agency side, we're direct to carrier. So we own all of our book of business day one. And, that's a huge deal. And a lot of agents don't recognize it. But, right now we're interviewing, tons of WFG agents, PHP agents coming over and stuff like that. You know what? The funny thing they always ask me, okay, how
What was
much
that?
does it cost to join? I'm like, nothing, man. And they're like, how do you guys make money? I'm like, oh,
When you sell, when
yeah.
you help people, we help
And then
people.
we're giving them comp high, just like the SMDs, and they're like, I get to start at that. I'm like, yeah. And they're just blown away. And I thought that's funny. I'm like, man, we're like literally helping these agents, saving them from this big lie.
Yeah. What's actually interesting, Matt, is as you're talking about uh, how the company demonized whole life, but it's funny because what they're actually selling is whole life. They're selling these stories like Walt Disney
Yeah.
pulled cash value out of
Oh,
his life
yeah.
insurance policy. By the way, it wasn't an IUL, it was whole life.
Yeah.
The banks, they own life insurance. Again, they own a lot of whole life, right?
Ray
And,
Kroc.
and the presidents, the Ray Kroc, right? All these people who use their life insurance, they're selling these stories, but they're leaving out the fact that all these stories are whole life stories and they're switching whole life for IUL, which isn't going to perform the same way, right? And it's going to leave you a lot of risk. If you watch my channel, anybody's channel that is associated with us, you learn those risks, right? And so, but it's crazy because they're actually selling whole life when they are in their pitch, but then they demonize it and say,
Yeah.
oh, but we're not selling that. It's bad. So yeah, it's just kind of crazy to me. But yeah, I think, getting back to, the brand new agent, um, thinking from a leadership standpoint, how do you put people in position to win? How do you put people in position to be happy? Right. I think part of happiness is having that creativity to design your own
Yeah.
company the way
Mhm.
you want it, right? And so that's some of the things we do. But the higher comp, the free resources, right? The training, like we give all the things that you actually need to succeed, and that's something from a leadership standpoint. I've always built my agency on what do I need to provide to my agents to help them succeed, to help them win. And I've always looked at loyalty. Like I said, I wasn't loyal to say like a WFG. I was like, my loyalty belongs to the people I bring in. They're my responsibility. I need to help them win. So my loyalty is to them. And if I can put them in a better situation, I will.
Yeah.
Right. I need to help them win. I don't need to help some company that's already winning win.
Mhm.
That's not my responsibility. I should be their responsibility, if anything. The people I brought
What?
in and the
Go ahead. I'm
Go ahead,
sorry.
Matt. Well, the
You made me
people
think
I
of.
brought in, they're my responsibility. I need to help them win.
Mhm. I think what you said, man, it just brought me up, brought an idea. Like with our company, right?
Yeah.
There's nobody above you pressuring you like you need to hit numbers and sales, right? And what I realize is a lot of leaders don't help their agents the right way because they're pressured to hit numbers and sales, the promotions and stuff like that. And it
Right.
creates this like I have to listen to my upline over helping my agents, which is all screwed up. And I see it all the time, all the time. You have leaders in both companies, Simplified Issue, MLM, where they're yelling at all their leadership and telling you got to do this. And it's like, so now the leader's making decisions for their leader, not for the agent's best interest. And what's refreshing about us, it's like you get to actually help people because you want to help people, and nobody outside of you is telling you how to do anything, right? It's totally you're doing the way doing the things that you want to do the way you want to do it, which I think that's just really amazing. I think we take it for granted in all these other companies,
Yeah.
they don't realize it, right?
Yeah. And that's one thing, back to what we talked about earlier, the mentors. What a lot of people don't realize is when they're signing up, they're not getting a mentor, right? They're getting a manager, they're getting an upline, they're getting someone who's going to tell them what to do. They're not going to teach them how to do it, or they're not going to teach them. Well, they might teach them how to do it to some extent, but they're not going to teach them how to think. And I
Yeah.
think, like for me, that's a big thing. Like I tell every agent that comes in that, look, I'm not your manager. I'm not going to tell you to hit numbers. In fact, I even tell them, if I ever tell you to hit certain numbers, that means I'm now imposing my goals on you. I'm not trying to help you reach your goals. Those are my goals, right? And so the numbers or that internal drive should come from you. But what I am going to do is, when you come up to challenges or you need to learn something, I'm not going to tell you the answer. I'm going to teach you how to think, and we're going to walk through that process together, because I'm trying to develop you as somebody who's going to be completely independent. I'm trying to develop you into a leader, not just an agent, right? Because I do have big goals, and it's like, hey, we want to scale this agency, but we need people who could think for themselves to do that. Like, we
Yeah.
don't need, you need other leaders. You don't need a bunch of more soldiers, right? Or just followers. So,
Yeah.
um, I think that's the big difference between having a mentor that's going to teach you how to think and how to process things for yourself, and help you do that for yourself, versus somebody who's just going to tell you what to do, right? And a manager or an upline. And I think that's vital to your growth, as not just as an agent, but as a leader, as somebody that can help the community. I think you have to find that, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, all these are components to help you, save a bunch of time in your journey, um, help you build the business that you want to build, help you succeed. I do want to hit on one more topic, Matt, for the new agents, because some people might be so new that they're still working a job. And me personally, I hate when I hear people like tell people to leave a job.
Mm.
But I'm definitely for having a job while you learn, because you are building a skill set. And so the last thing I want to talk about is, when should you leave a job? And I'll give you my personal opinion of this. Your manager, your mentor should never tell you when it's time to leave.
Yeah.
Um, you should have a job because you're developing a skill set. So if you leave the job, here's what happens. Now you're reliant on your insurance business for income, right? And now it can cause you to shift the focus to only making money and not developing yourself, like we're talking about. And I'd rather have you in a position where you are not worried about money. You can focus on developing your mindset and your skill set. And then there's going to come a point where I'm not going to have to tell you. You're just going to be like, what am I still doing here? Right? I need to get out of this job. I can do this. My mind's right. I have the skills to back it up. In fact, the conversation I told you, Matt, where I had that conversation with my buddy, and he said, dude, what do you need reserves for? All you need is to perform. Your skills have to be aligned. I
Mm.
actually put my 2 week notice in right after that talk, because I looked at my own skills. I'm like, you know what am I waiting for?
Mhm.
I am good enough to do this. And I did go through a struggle, because one skill I didn't have Matt, and we can talk on this too, is I didn't have the skill of being my own boss, right?
Yeah.
So for 15 years, I had somebody else tell me what time to show up, so what time I could go home, what to do, and I didn't have that skill set. So I did really struggle, Matt, the first few months. That was something I had to learn, and luckily my bank account kind of told me, "Hey, Michael, you got to get to work," because it started running out. Um, but I think that's another skill set in itself, right? And so I am a big believer that at some point you make a jump and you have to go with no safety net. But that period should not be before you have the skills to make it, right? You should have the skills in place, because there's not going to be a safety net. You have to rely on those skills. So don't make the jump without the skills and with no safety net. And that's my thoughts. If you want
Yeah,
to share on that.
that's pretty spot on. I think skills is important, right? And the level of skills is meaning um, more often than not, you can produce a result. It's almost predictable, right? You determine what the predictability is, but it's like, out of 5 times, I can produce a result 3 times. Like that skill has to be objectively observable, right? So that's one thing. And this is the one thing I've learned, and this is kind of you and I went through the same journey. Yes, you have to have a certain amount of skill, right? Now there's some criteria as I help with agents is reduce all the debt, reduce all unnecessary spending. There's some things, right? This is what I learned how to learn the wrong way. You could have as much skills, high skills, quit your job, you're fully confident. You're like, man, I'm gonna kill this because 4 out of 5 times I could produce a result. But there's one thing that also has to be with the skill is your ability to be a good steward of money. If that's not in place, man, you just as fast as you make all that money, it'll go out the door. And that's one of the things I had to learn. I got the skill, I put in a lot of time, I developed myself. I probably jumped ship way sooner than I should have. Um, but what I was not was a good steward of money. Growing up, I didn't have money. And so when that amount of money flushed through my bank account, like it was a faucet, I did all bad things with it. And I don't even have anything to show for it. So I wasn't a good steward of money. So I had to learn the hard way. And so for me, when I work with an agent, that's one thing is we talk about the skill, but I want to take a look at, what are their habits? Are they a good steward of money? Do they have a drinking habit? Do they have a, habit of going to the clubs every weekend? Do they like designer bags and, have this problem spending money? Because that one little problem will expand into something bigger when you have more money coming in. So it's one of the things that I pay attention to.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Um, yeah, it's vital. I I can attest I had the same story, Matt. You know, I definitely wasted a lot of money, and put it in the wrong thing. And that's another thing too, is like when you're investing in your business, you want to do it smartly,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to just, oh, there's leads. Let me just throw
Yeah.
$2,000 a week at these leads, like just because my manager is telling me to do so.
That's what they tell you.
They tell you, yeah, you'll end up in a bunch of debt. You'll or you'll end up spending a lot of money. And hopefully you make some of it back, and hopefully you profit. But there's, when they're selling you leads that they've sold to 20 other people, it's going to be hard to make the money back. But yeah, it's just, yeah, being a steward. And I tell people this too, like, say, look, because I think maybe this will be the last component we talk about, is ownership. And there's a lot of people, if you go in the Facebook groups, like life insurance groups, they'll rip on companies for being captive, or they'll do this and they'll say, oh, but you don't have ownership, and ownership's a big deal. And I'm not trying to downplay ownership,
Yeah.
but when you think about ownership, it's like, what do you really own? Because if I have an agent and they own their book, do I own their book?
Mhm.
Like, no, I don't own their book. I own my renewals, right? So when you're building an agency, you might have ownership of your book, but you don't have ownership of people,
Yeah.
right? And you don't control people. They can quit, or even if they're great, they might say, hey, you know what? I've done so well. I'm so confident. I really want to do my own thing, and I want to kind of branch off. And you still might lose them, and they might take a bunch of people with them too, right? And so I think when you look at the game, I think it was Tony Robbins talked about this too, in business, but you're kind of playing two games. You're making money in the business, but you're also being a steward of your money and starting to grow your money outside the business.
Yeah.
Because ultimately the risk in any investment is lack of control, right? And Robert Kiyosaki talks about when you don't control the investment, that's why it's risky. And so if you can take the money, because you never control people, from somewhere where you don't have control to somewhere where you do have control, now you're setting yourself up for security and a lot of other free benefits, peace of mind,
So
and just putting yourself in a good place. So do you have any final words, Matt?
Man, I wish you would have been there to tell me that when I first started this industry, because I think that's, a lot of agents in this industry, when you go into it, there's a lot of things you can't control. And what might be in place now might not be in place later. And
Yeah.
everything, that's one of the things about stoicism is they look at life um, in a frame where everything in your life is rented. It's on a loan to you. Relationships, people in your life, businesses, everything's on a loan. But we always assume that it's always going to be there. And in this industry, things change, regulations, your team, leadership, a lot of things change. But if you're smart, if you make all that money and save it, right, and control it, and you can create that whole control and the financial freedom and the security of your life outside from the income you can make from this industry, that's the smart way to do it. I wish somebody would have sat me down, did that, 10 years ago. Man, all that money I would have saved.
Yeah,
Um,
man. Trust me, same. I definitely thrown away a lot of money, and so hopefully, if this prevents even one person from making the same mistakes that we made,
yeah,
this video will be a success. So, um, but yeah, Matt, appreciate you,
yeah,
hopping on.
we'll do
And
it again. We have a lot to talk about, so I'm sure we'll be at it again.
yeah, I mean, just even in the end, talking about investments and control, like that's a whole nother video in itself. So, we'll definitely get to that here in a bit. But anyways, appreciate you being on.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
You too.